Hey, everybody. So good to have you with us. I did a show earlier today. Back with you, Ryan, in Sacktown in just a moment. The Knicks, they are one win away from the Eastern Conference Finals as they beat the Pacers badly. They blew them off the floor 121 to 91. Meanwhile, the Nuggets and Timberwolves early on in the first quarter. But Jalen Brunson's unbelievable. I mean, he really is. When you think about what Brunson has done for that Knicks team, and, all the people, the Knicks are tired. It's a bunch of crap, a bunch of fatigue. It's nonsense. Okay. I mean, because they got blown out in the last game. All right. Now, all of a sudden, the Knicks are tired because they didn't play well in one game. So, what now? I'm going to say that the Pacers are tired. It's the NBA. It's the playoffs. It's the way these things go for, every now and then. But Jalen Brunson, think about his game 43 minutes. He had 44 points. And I mean, it's amazing what he's doing. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, he takes a lot of shots, but 44 points on 35 shots is fine. I mean, he shot over 50%. That's damn good. 18 of 35. McBride had 17. Hart had 18. And again, the Knicks cruise 121 to 91. I do not like that broadcast team of Brian Anderson and Stan Van Gundy. I don't. Brian Anderson, I said this earlier. Brian Anderson is a great, great baseball announcer. He's not a great basketball announcer. I don't know what TNT sees in him as the NBA. He doesn't have a leg to stand on compared to Ian Eagle and Kevin Harlan. And he's the number one NBA guy on TNT. Are you kidding me? Again, the talent evaluators of these networks don't know what the hell they're doing. Like you could take 50 fans and have them and not tell them who the announcers were and have them watch Ian Eagle do a game, Brian Anderson do a game, and Kevin Harlan. And you could have them rank who's the best announcer. And you would get some for Harlan and some for Eagle. And the majority of the 50 would have Kevin Harlan and Ian Eagle, and maybe a few who like boring games would have Brian Anderson. Terrible. I shouldn't say that. He's not terrible. I take that back. He's very professional. I shouldn't say that. He's not terrible. I was wrong for saying that. But compared to Ian Eagle and Kevin Harlan on TNT, I mean, it's no contest. I mean, Eagle and Harlan blow Brian Anderson away. Now, Brian Anderson would destroy them if they ever tried to do baseball. Brian's a great baseball announcer. I said this earlier. Give me Brian Anderson or Dan Schulman doing a baseball game, and I'll be very, very happy. Very happy. But basketball, he's not a basketball announcer. He doesn't have the energy, doesn't have the he doesn't have the voice. He doesn't have the inflection in his voice to do basketball. He's just not. I don't know what TNT sees in him. I really don't. I don't get it. So again, 121 to 91 the final. All right. 121 to 91 the final. And the Knicks, they don't win in game 6. They know they've got game 7, I mean, there's no way I see the Knicks losing this series unless Brunson gets hurt. If he gets hurt, yes. Nuggets, with 2 minutes left in the first, lead Minnesota 23 to 21. I didn't even see that. Did Reggie call a game last week without Harlan? I've been watching hockey most nights, to be honest with you. I haven't even been watching a lot of the NBA playoffs. I've been watching all the hockey. I love watching the hockey. I watched the Bruins-Panthers game a little bit earlier with Boston winning, and now the Oilers lead the Canucks 1-0. I'll watch hockey all day, all night. Give me hockey. Love watching hockey. Absolutely love it. So anyway, if you want to comment on the game, you got the QR code on the screen. You can give me a call and we can talk about it or anything else going on in the world of sports. Happy to have you here on this Tuesday evening edition of If You Don't Like That, talking about the Knicks You know, you talk about Minnesota, with no Mike Conley tonight. I mean, he's got a sore Achilles tendon. So you got Alexander Walker starting in his place. It's not good news. You want his veteran leadership out on the floor. It's not the best news. Not the best news. I got to give Denver a lot of credit. You're down 2-0, and you've got to win 2 games on the road, and they do that. That's big time. That is big time. That's very impressive what the Denver Nuggets did, going out there and winning games 3 and 4 in Minnesota. Very, very impressive. All right? Very impressive. Said, glad we are critiquing announcers rather than dwelling on Sunday's Knicks loss. There's no reason to dwell on any loss in the playoffs unless it's game 7 or an elimination game. Like Patrick, you didn't think the Knicks were going to sweep Indiana, did you? So they lost. So they got blown out. Who cares? Big deal. It's one game. And there's no momentum in the playoffs. Momentum doesn't exist. There is no momentum in the playoffs. It's game to game. There's no carryover. I didn't think that there was a big deal at all. All right, let's bring Ryan in Sacktown. Ryan, hope that all is well, buddy. And boy, how about Jalen Brunson and what he's done for that Knicks team, huh? Unbelievable.
He's been pretty incredible, Grant. It's an incredible thing to watch on that big of a stage with the nation watching, bringing a franchise back to prominence. It is beautiful stuff, my friend.
Yeah, Madison Square Garden rocking. And I've said this, and I'm going to continue to say that. I don't make a big deal out of any one game in the playoffs unless it's a game that sends you home for the offseason. There's no momentum in the playoffs. Every game is different. Every game is its own separate entity. One game to the next doesn't have anything to do with anything. I mean, you can look at all the playoffs this year. Look at Minnesota. They're up 2-0. They go home. They're feeling great. They lose 2 games. The Knicks win 2 games at the Garden. Game 3 is close. They get blown out in game 4, and all these people are nervous. Don't be nervous. You got home court. Madison Square Garden is a hell of a home court. And boy, the crowd, man, oh man, what an environment at MSG.
Oh, it gives them a huge lift, Grant. And you're right. When else in the regular season do you game plan to see a team 3 times in a row? You don't, let alone a 7-game series. And really what you see is the styles. That's what comes through the most. When the Knicks play physical like they did tonight, and they didn't play all that bad in game 3 in Indiana. They played pretty well.
No, they could have won easily.
Yeah, absolutely. They dominate where they do things best. The boards, the paint. Look at Hartenstein, 17 boards tonight. Yep. Hart, 11. I mean, that's Knicks basketball right now.
The Knicks destroyed the Pacers on the glass tonight. Destroyed them.
Not even
close. Just absolutely manhandled them on the boards.
I believe the Knicks had 53 and the Pacers 29. Yep. That tells you what you need to know. And when the Knicks play that way, Grant, they're underhand too on the front line too. You got no Randall. You got no Robinson.
Yep. This one, I don't hear anything about James Dolan being the worst owner in the NBA. Well, he'll never be the worst owner as long as Vivek Ranadive is still in the league. But James Dolan is a bad owner. Everyone acknowledges he's a bad owner, and his tenureship at New York has been a disaster for the league. So he is a bad owner. I mean, it just is. Well, yeah, Patrick's right. It is worrisome with the Knick injuries. No question, but Tom Thibodeau's gone to a short bench. The fact that the Knicks are doing what they're doing without Randall, who got hurt in the middle of the year with the shoulder and is out, without Anunoby, without Robinson, it's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, and Patrick, I would add this. The Knicks aren't the only team dealing with injuries right now, my friend. In fact, if I got to look at a core that's pretty much all together, I like the Knicks core right now as much as I like any outside of Denver.
Yeah, Denver leading 28-24. No Mike Conley tonight for Minnesota, and that's certainly not the way they wanted to go into a pivotal game 5. Again, we always say, when you beat the champs, you got to beat the champs. You got to knock them out. 2 games doesn't win a series. 4 games wins a series. And I think what Denver did, winning 2 games on the road, was as impressive as anything I've seen in the playoffs so far this season.
Yeah, I'm not ready to put it up there with what Minnesota did in the first 2 games in Denver because they absolutely D'd them up, locked them up. But for that team to bounce back, to me, it's what that team should have done, coached by Michael Malone, coming off of a championship. But it was 2 great games where it wasn't even close.
Yeah. This one about the Knicks, 62-20 or 20-62. Those fans show up. They sure do. They sure do. There's no doubt about that. They sure do show up. 100%. The Knicks fans are always there. There's no doubt about that.
Except
again, Minnesota and go ahead. What's that?
Except the celebrities. Sometimes you recognize the celebrities now on Celebrity Road.
Yeah, yes, you do. 28-26. Denver and Minnesota. It's a 2-point lead for the Nuggets after 1 quarter of play. All right, you and I have this is the first time we've chatted since the lottery, and I've always said this, and I'm going to continue to say this. I don't think 14 teams in the NBA should be in the lottery. I think only 7 of the teams should be in the lottery. I think the worst team in the league should have a 50% chance of getting the number 1 pick. I think it's a travesty when the 10th team gets the number 1 pick like the Atlanta Hawks did. And I think it's a travesty when the Pistons, who were the worst team in the NBA with the worst record in the NBA, ends up with the 5th pick. I think it's a travesty. I don't like it.
Yeah, Grant, it's a system that needs to be looked at, but it's one of many that we can put up there with the officiating, instant replay. And I think the wild card in all this, Jerry Reynolds said it today earlier, it's you don't want teams tanking, right? And if you have, I know the 50% that you laid out's a little bit different there, but we need a bigger sample size of this 65 game rule. It worked this year, but was it directly that, or was it just guys staying more healthy? But the lottery is so mysterious, and with an NBA where it's transparency helps, especially with Adam Silver, they got to do something, Napes. They got to do something.
Well, again, the Pistons, I think it's just a bad system when the worst team in the NBA, who clearly didn't tank, by the way, gets the 5th overall pick. That's just not the way the draft's supposed to work. That's not the purpose of it. It's wrong. And I'm not a fan of it. I'm just not a fan of it. And you don't need 14 teams in a lottery. You know, a team like the Kings should not be in the lottery when they win 46 games. And I know that they only had a 3% chance or less than a 3% chance, like a 1% chance of getting the number 1 pick, but they still had a chance. And there's no reason why a 46 team should be in a draft lottery. It's wrong. I don't like it.
Yeah, I get it. And here's what happens. It swings a franchise. San Antonio last year, not supposed to be the number 1 pick. What do? They get Wemby. Now they got 2 picks in the top 8 this year. That's why we're saying San Antonio can creep up. So, yes, it can have a huge impact on teams.
Jake, I didn't say the Pistons should have got the number 1 pick. I didn't say that. You didn't hear me say that. What I said was they shouldn't have gotten the 5th pick. To me, they shouldn't have done any worse than a top 3 pick, okay? They should have gotten either 1, 2, or 3. They should not have gotten 5. I didn't say they should have gotten the number 1 pick. You said yes as if I said that. I didn't say that. Come on now. Listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's Grant, I just want clarification. How do we come up with these percentages? You know, I think the top percentage is like 14%, and I know 14%. They draw multiple balls, but like, where are those numbers coming from, right? You know, shouldn't it be more than a 14%, like you said, maybe a 50?
Yes.
But
yes,
where does that stagger and how does that work out? I think
it's a horrible system. It's an awful system. It's just terrible. It's just an awful system. And I don't know how the NBA does not just, and I know it's a made for TV lottery show and all of that crap, but it's terrible. It's just terrible.
So let me ask you this then. What would be different about the NBA drafting an NFL style draft, how they determine the number 1 pick? It's worked for the NFL for a really long time.
Well, I would love to see it. Now, you do see teams in the NFL tank. It happens every year, and it happens at the end of the year. You know it, and I know it. And so, but the NFL owners don't have a problem with it. And generally speaking, not all the time, but almost all the time, the worst team in the NFL gets the number 1 pick. Very rarely are we sitting here saying, gee, wow, that team got lucky. They weren't really, barring a trade. You know, if you had made a trade and you got a number 1 pick, like we saw this year with the Bears. They got lucky because of the pick they received. And the Bears were a bad team. But the point is, generally speaking, the worst team in the NFL gets the number one pick, and it's been that way ever since the league started.
Man, the NFL's not doing too bad. They're not doing too bad the last time I checked.
The 100th anniversary of the NFL coming up this year.
Hard to believe. That's the NFL. Yeah.
Yep, the National Football League. And it's pretty amazing. 1925.
What was it like when you attended those games, Napes, with the leather
1925? Let me see. Yeah. Well, my first game I ever went to was in 1962. And I'll tell you right now, that era of the NFL, and I don't remember very much about that first game because I was 3 years old. But I was 3. I started going to the games when I was 3. And I was at a game every week until I went to college. I would say it was great. Being at Yankee Stadium and seeing Jim Brown play when the Browns came into town once, seeing Roger Staubach play, seeing the greats of that era play. And then, we had season tickets to the Jets. So I was at, a Jets game every other week, seeing Johnny Unitas come in to play Joe Namath at Shea Stadium. Those were like big time games, right? Seeing Bubba Parra, seeing some of the great players, watching the Cowboys come in there with Bob Lilly, Calvin Hill, Bob Hayes, Roger Staubach, right? Seeing the Steelers and their great teams. And I saw some of the most iconic, incredible Dick Butkus I watched played. I can go on and on. It was amazing. It was absolutely incredible to be at an NFL game every single week. Like I remember walking in the Yankee Stadium on Sundays feeling like, wow, like I was so excited to go to the games every week. So excited. And the Giants were terrible, by the way. I wasn't excited because the Giants were going to win, because they weren't going to win, because they were terrible every single year. I was excited going to watch the National Football League and just the great players. Like it was phenomenal. I was blessed to have experienced that as a kid.
And think about it, my generation can't even really consider what that means, because even if we weren't going to games, you were still getting a couple national games a week, there wasn't a ton of television like there is now where get every game.
You watch, if you were at home, if the Giants were on the road and we didn't go to every Jets game. We went to most of them. Most of them. But if you were at home on a Sunday, you were only getting 2 games. You got the local game, you got the Giants, and then you got the national game, and that was it. There were no other games on. And then you had one game when Monday Night Football began, in the 70s, then you got that game. But that's it. You didn't have any other games on. There were no other games on. There was no such thing as going to a sports bar. Not that I would have been going to a sports bar when I was 6 years old, but the point is that didn't exist, right? You weren't sitting at home going, gee, I really want to watch the Kansas City Chiefs play the Oakland Raiders. No, that wasn't the way it was. That wasn't happening,
Oh, totally. And it's a different way of the legend spreading of these players that you're talking about. It's newspapers, it's NFL films when that rolled around. Special stuff, though. Special name.
The NFL films had a tremendous impact back in that era. What they did for the National Football League, they were so ahead of their times and what they were able to do. They had a tremendous impact on the popularity of professional football, no question. And I will tell you, to be able to watch the best of the, NFC and the old AFL, and seeing those players come in from, and again, the famous Super Bowl in '69, where, the Jets and Joe Namath and what they did for professional football in their upset over the Colts. But that was a huge turning point in the NFL. But the old AFL, the NFL, and it was unbelievable. I can't even begin to tell you what it was like. I mean, it was truly remarkable to see some of the, and I say this as a football player. I was at the game that O.J. Simpson was the first player ever to run for 2,000 yards. And I'll never forget the game. I was with Chris Russo and my brother, and it was to this day, it's the coldest game I've ever been at. And my brother left at halftime because it was too cold. He was going to go wait in a car with the heater on. And I'll never forget this. The only place you could get warm at Shea Stadium were in the men's room. They had heaters in there. And I remember Chris and I and a lot of others, we went into the bathroom for 10 minutes just to try to get a little warm. We said we were not going to miss History Made. And there were very few people. If you watch the video of that day with the Bills at Shea Stadium, when he rushed for over 2,000 yards, there were very few people in the stadium because it was that cold. And to this day, a lot of people talk about 2,000 yards, Eric Dickerson, or no. If you don't rush for 2,000 yards in 14 games, it's not. I don't want to hear about it. Okay, I don't want to hear about. I'm not saying that 2,000 yards in 16 games is not impressive. I'm not saying that, but that was done in 14 games. Now think about that, 14 games, and to this day, and I watched Jim Brown play. I watched Tony Dorsett play in person. I watched Barry Sanders play in person. I watched Walter Payton play in person. I covered Walter Payton, by the way, as a member of the media, and Simpson. And for me personally, again, just me, Simpson is the best back that I've ever seen in the NFL. Best running back I've ever seen. And when he was on Monday Night Football, you did not turn your eyes off the screen. You didn't go to the bathroom. You didn't go get something to eat when the Bills had the ball, because he was literally a threat to go the distance every time he got the ball. And to this day, and I've watched all the different eras of football, haven't watched the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, or the 50s, but I've watched a lot of great players, I've never seen anyone like him run the football. Never. Never.
Would you say Reggie Bush before Reggie Bush?
Well, that's interesting because they both went to USC.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of what they did in college, yes, but I can't equate their NFL careers.
Sure.
But at USC, yeah. I remember watching, OJ play at USC, and when they were on TV, you didn't miss that game. I mean, it was unbelievable.
What was the separator with OJ? Like Barry Sanders, elusive. You just couldn't get your hands on him. Was OJ just kind of a mix of everything put together?
He wasn't like what you would call a great power back, but his explosiveness to the point of attack, and then through his ability to get to the hole and then make people miss was unbelievable. Barry Sanders never played in a big game, and that hurt him. And I'm not taking anything away from Sanders.
Sure.
But when you think about somebody rushing for 2,000 yards in 14 games, think about that.
It's a high burn rate, number one. Talk about guys that are kind of hybrid running backs, receivers now. But yeah, very impressive.
And I would also say if the Bills had played in a dome like Sanders did with the perfect footing, where up in Orchard Park, Buffalo, for the final 4 to 6 weeks of the season, it was not. I think he might have had 22 or 2,300 yards. Patrick said Earl Campbell. I watched Earl Campbell play in person. Earl Campbell, to this day, is the most punishing running back that I've ever seen. And Bum Phillips, the coach of the Oilers, once said this of Earl Campbell: he may not be in a class by himself, but it doesn't take long to call the roll. And that is very true. Earl Campbell is one of the best running backs. Unfortunately, because of the style that he played, he didn't have the longevity of his career. But Earl Campbell, if you go back and watch video of Earl Campbell, there were very few players ever in the history of the National Football League that ran the ball like Earl. Bo Jackson's another. Unfortunately, his career was cut short in football because of injuries. And I wonder what, if he had stayed in football and not played baseball and not been injured in that one play, up in Seattle when the Raiders were playing the Seahawks. I wonder what, his career would have been. But Earl Campbell, to this day, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone quite like Earl Campbell. Have you ever watched video of Earl Campbell?
I have not.
When we get done today, go on YouTube and just Google and watch Earl Campbell highlights. Just watch him. It's unbelievable.
Did you lose me? You lost.
No, I'm here. I got you.
Oh, I said I have nothing that I can recall in terms of a player or two off the top of my head.
All right. Why don't we get to some phone calls and we say hello to Zach. Zach, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
This is switching subjects a little bit. If you guys are down to talk some Kings basketball, I don't know, the days keep going and I'm getting more and more worried. I'm hearing Houston, they want to trade their pick and get a player that's going to be impactful this upcoming season. Memphis, they got a decent pick. They want to do the same thing. These are two teams that were behind us this year too. You got the Lakers. They're interested in Donovan Mitchell. I know they're always interested in every player. So, it's you take it with a grain of salt with those news, but you just never know. They're always going to try to be in the race. Warriors, they're always going to try to be in the race. Now, if the Kings don't get re-signed Monk, that's going to be huge problems. But the three players that I'm hearing that the Kings are not connected to, but they're on the market is Ingram, Levine, and Kyle Kuzma. Those are the three I'm hearing. And if Monk leaves, I think we almost have to make one of these type of moves just to stay relevant. So I was going to ask, ranking those three, knowing that Zach's contract is $50 million in a couple of years.
I would take Kuzma. If you gave me the three, it would be Kuzma one. And I like Brandon Ingram, but here's what I don't like, Zach. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we talked about this last week. Mm-hmm. He's only played 70 games once in his NBA career. He doesn't play enough for me. He's hurt too much for me. And you're going to have to pay him big dollars to have him on your team. And that makes me nervous. I need a guy that his track record says he plays 70-plus games every year, and that's not Brandon Ingram. I like Kuzma. I think he provides something that would be really good for the Kings. I'm a Zach LaVine guy, but I'm not a Zach LaVine guy at the numbers you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Like LaVine, I like him, but $50 million in a couple of years, that's just rough to keep. Just he might be hurt and everything. And then Ingram, I like Ingram a little bit, and like you said, the injuries are concerning. And not only that, his contract is 1 more year, so we don't even know if we're going to keep him. So right. I agree. My rankings were pretty much the same. Kuzma was my number 1, but I mean, let's just say Kuzma and Ingram are not on the market. Let's say LaVine is the best player we have that's on the market. Do you do it if we don't re-sign Monk? Is it like almost a have to?
I don't think you have to, but I think you are going to have to add to the roster. What do you think it would take to get Kyle Kuzma from Washington?
Kuzma, I think it would take probably 2 picks and, whatever Barnes and.
See, I don't think the Kings pick is very attractive this year.
Yeah.
The 13th pick in this year's draft is not that attractive. Most people that evaluate the draft, and I'm not one of them, Zach, you probably know a lot more about the draft than me. Mm-hmm. It's not a strong draft.
No, it's not.
Okay, and now that doesn't mean that you can't find a good player at 13, but again, it's not a strong draft, and I don't know if that pick is that attractive if you are Washington. And if you get another pick from Sacramento, the fact that the Kings are pretty much a 45-plus win team, it looks like, that pick's not that attractive. And you lose your pick next year, correct me if I'm wrong, to the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, a third, they're saying the draft, the number 1 pick pretty much starts at a number 7 or 8, an unusual year is what, type of players I'm hearing, which is kind of crazy.
And we're hearing that the Frenchman again might be the number 1 pick, right? The big man.
Yeah.
So I haven't really. The only thing I've looked at the draft, and I'm starting to get into it a little bit more because we have to get ready for next month's draft. But everywhere I look, it's not projected to be that good of a draft.
No, it's not. Yeah, and I don't even know if the Wizards, if we give them 2 picks and a Barnes and a Herter, I don't know if that's even going to be enough. But assuming it is enough, I would probably do that trade. Just I mean, because the players that this year are in the draft, like we said, aren't going to be too great, so it's not worth losing. And maybe 2 years from now, I think would be the other pick. But It's just tough
Okay.
because the Kings,
Yeah.
Monty's in a tough spot. He's got to make moves. He's just got to make moves this year.
Well, he does, because if they don't, we've talked about this. Their teams are passing the Kings by in the West, and there are other teams that are coming up in the rearview mirror really quickly. You mentioned two of them, San Antonio and Houston, and Memphis, who wasn't relevant this past year because of injuries. Memphis is going to be right in the mix next year.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be scary. I just hope Monty's ready to make some moves. I mean, there's going to be players available. I'm even scared because, Monk, the teams that were luring him were like Philly, Orlando was the big one that everyone's talking about. Detroit's probably not, I don't think he'd go there. But another team that I'm thinking, just because from watching them in the playoffs, that they kind of need a third scorer is OKC. They could use a third guy that spot up three, and
well, if they got Malik Monk, to me they're a championship team.
Yeah.
The other part is, I think Malik wants to stay in Sacramento, so that helps. I do think I really believe he wants to stay in Sacramento, but it's going to come down to what he's offered when we get to that point in time in free agency.
Yeah, because I think the max is 19.5 per year from the Kings, but if he gets 22, 20, even 21 million from another team, he's got to take it. That's $10 extra million.
Well, not only that, if it's a team like Orlando, not only is it that, but you look at how much money you save in taxes.
Yes, the taxes, and you get to be in the top 5 or 6 already in the East, worst case, just because the East is so much easier. And speaking of that, this is just the question I always think about. I don't think it'll ever happen, but just competitive wise, do you think that I know they wouldn't do it, but a 1 through 16 East versus West, taking out the East and West.
Not going to do it because of the travel. It's been discussed before, but it would be too hard with the travel. If you get unlucky, let's say you're Sacramento. I'm just going to give you an example. And in the first round, you got to play the Knicks.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's say you win that round and you play the winner of a series between Golden State and Utah, or Golden State and the Clippers. Well, you've been going back and forth across the country, and now you're playing a team that stayed in the same time zone, that's had only an hour of travel, twice. I think for that reason alone, Zach, it would be very difficult to have a competitive playoffs. I think there would be a lot of inequities with travel.
Yeah, the traveling would definitely be a problem, and they would have to kind of like shorten the season. Like they would have to extend the playoffs or something, and it'd be tough for their entire schedule and how they're trying to fit all these games.
It's a good thought, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's not logistically possible, but just throwing out there and seeing what you had.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, Ryno's having some internet problems, so I'll take you solo the rest of the way. Hey, I want to tell you, for all of your plumbing needs and repairs, just go to New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. All right, sackserviceplumbing.com, or call the number on your screen. They're available around the clock 24/7 for all of your plumbing needs and repairs. Once again, that is New Works Plumbing, and they've got a fix for you. Very interesting thoughts by Zach. And until we know, all right, the Kings are going to obviously have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. If they lose Monk, okay, if that plan B has got to be implemented, and it's got to be implemented quickly. So they've got a wish list. I don't think anyone in the Kings front office is thinking they don't have to do anything. I think they realize that there's a lot of work that has to be done. Nuggets, with 3 minutes left in the first half, a low-scoring game, all right? A low-scoring game. It is 43-39. That's 43-39 with 3 minutes left. The Knicks putting 121 on the board, that was very surprising to me, and they coasted to at the end of the game. And now they're 1 win away from the Eastern Conference Finals. But what was surprising to me, about that game is that Jalen Brunson played 43 of the 48 minutes. So the game was never in doubt in the fourth quarter. Never. And Brunson still played 43 minutes. I was a little surprised by that. We keep on hearing about the attrition of the Knicks. Why is Brunson playing 43 minutes in a blowout? Right? Like, I didn't understand that. I really didn't. That's the one part of that game that's a little puzzling to me. Again, 121-91, the final. The Knicks win. And the game going on right now, it's a low-scoring game, which really does surprise me. No Mike Conley for Minnesota, and again, 43-39. Again, Ryan's having some internet issues, so I am taking you solo. If you want to hit me up on the chat line, it is right there in front of you. Do so. And it's been a good day. We were on earlier today at 5 o'clock, and we're going to be doing a lot of shows. So here's the deal. If you have not yet already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. That way you'll know whenever programming is going to be coming down the pipe. And thumbs up. Appreciate it very much. Greatly appreciated that. And as always, we thank all of our sponsors and all of our viewers. And, of course, one of my sponsors is Bennett's. And Bennett's has great deals going on for you with happy hour. All right? 2 to 6 every day. You can enjoy value-priced sips and taste. So you're looking for a great spot to unwind after work or whatever the case may be, look no further than Bennett's. Daily happy hour, amazing value-priced sips and tastes. From 2 to 6, you can enjoy signature cocktails and wines by the glass at unbeatable prices, ranging many under $14 and many, many options priced from $6. And it's not just the drinks that are a deal during the happy hour. They have a variety of share plates and classic comfort foods. So it's all there for you at Bennett's happy hour, 2 to 6. Enjoy the value-priced sips and taste. 3 locations, Sacramento, Roseville, and the West Side Grill at the Blue Oaks Town Center in Rockland. Always great to have Bennett's helping us out and being a really good sponsor. I said, Brian's great. Does amazing things for the community. Condog, what's going on tonight?
So actually I kind of want to double down just a little bit on you talking about Earl Campbell as a player. So I looked into it. One time I got into this argument online on who was better between him or Frank Gore. And I picked Earl Campbell just because due to the fact that he was just in prime per prime, he was just such a phenom that you could not tackle solo at all. And that he was also included in the NFL 100 team and Frank Gore was not. And I think that list is even more special than the Hall of Fame.
I'll answer the question this way. If you had all the general managers in the era that Earl Campbell played and all the general managers in the era that Frank Gore played, and you said you could only choose one of the backs in their prime, okay, not their overall career, in their prime, I believe there's not one general manager that would take Frank Gore over Earl Campbell.
Oh, no. You with a 3-year window with a prime Earl Campbell, you'd be able to build a winner.
Earl Campbell was one of the great running backs in the history of the NFL in his prime. There were very few players that have ever played the running back position in Earl Campbell. And Frank Gore had a great career, and there's no one saying that he didn't. But if you're going to take in their prime, Earl Campbell was unbelievably special. And Ryan, who has an internet problem, so I don't even know if they'll be able to go check it out. I encourage anyone that was not old enough to or was not alive when Earl Campbell played, just go watch the video of Earl Campbell. He punished defenses, punished them.
Oh yeah, I loved having NFL Network growing up because I would watch a lot of stuff that they had on there, like the American game stuff. I was junkie on that. Like that was a lot of my summer was on that, and yeah, NFL amazing job with that. Just having that network and all the filming that they did back then, and fantastic stuff. Like if you guys ever have NFL Network and have a chance to rewatch any of their older stuff, do it. It is fantastic. You will learn so much.
No question. Thanks, buddy. Patrick asked, any thoughts on the NFL schedule reveal tomorrow? Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to be doing a show tomorrow at 5 o'clock, and we will be talking a lot about the NFL schedule. So tomorrow, right here, 5 o'clock, if you don't like that, and we'll be talking a lot more about the NFL schedule. Again, I'm just telling you, if you never watched Earl Campbell and the Houston Oilers play, just go look at video of Earl. He was, first of all, he was great at Texas. as a running back in college. Oh my God. So one of the great, I think Earl Campbell and Bo Jackson, and again, you can look at a number of backs at USC, Reggie Bush, OJ, Marcus Allen. I mean, you always have to include USC. I don't know if you could find a better college running back ever than Earl Campbell. I mean, Earl Campbell was unbelievable at Texas. I mean, and then in Houston, again, Bum Phillips said it best. He may not be in a class by himself, but it doesn't take long to call the roll. That's Earl Campbell for you. All right. Tomorrow, 5 o'clock, we will talk about NFL, and we'll go over the schedule. We'll talk about the NBA. That's all coming up tomorrow right here, if you don't like that. Yeah, you know what, Cody? Marcus Dupree, I can't put Marcus Dupree in the same sentence as Earl Campbell and Bo Jackson. And I understand what you're saying at Oklahoma, and I get that. But trust me, okay? He doesn't belong in the same sentence as Bo Jackson and Earl Campbell. In my opinion, I can't put Marcus Dupree in the same sentence as Earl Campbell and Bo Jackson in college football. I can't. And I acknowledge he was tremendous in college. But, wow. Earl Campbell at Texas and Bo Jackson at Auburn. Again, I still think they're probably the two greatest running backs to ever play college football. And that's saying something. All right, good show. Appreciate all your feedback, your calls, your messages. And, well, I will get to this. More bruising than John Riggins, Earl Campbell? Yeah. Yes. Go watch the video. And listen, John Riggins was a hell of a running back. But go watch Earl Campbell. It's unbelievable. Talk to you tomorrow, everybody.